Hello, I'm Marina and I'm a tutor at the Jacked Greek Summer School. This video introduces some of the key grammatical concepts you need to understand before beginning to learn Greek, as well as explaining some of the main differences between Greek and English sentence structures. At some points you may wish to pause the video to complete some tasks or make some notes before moving on. Here we have an illustration of the idea that in English, word order conveys meaning. You can see this from the two example sentences. Both of these sentences include the same words, but it's the order of the words in the first sentence that make it meaningful. A dog chased the cat around the garden. The second sentence is nonsense because the words are jumbled together in a random order, garden the around, cat, dog, a chaser. So in English, we rely really heavily on word order for making grammatical sense. This isn't the case in Greek because it doesn't rely on word order to convey meaning, at least not very much. Instead, we need to look at the endings of words, which gives us information about the grammatical role of each word in a sentence. So to start from the basics, you probably know the difference between a noun and a verb, but we need to be really confident in our knowledge of these grammatical terms because we're going to use them a lot. So you can see that the noun is a person, place, or a thing in a sentence, and there are some examples there you might want to come up with your own. And a verb is an action word in a sentence, and there are some examples there as well. So we're going to be looking at the role of nouns and verbs in Greek sentences. So to start with nouns. First, we need to understand the role of the grammatical subjects and be able to identify the subject in English sentences. So the subject is the noun doing the verb or the verbal action. In English, it usually appears at the start of a sentence, but it can appear anywhere in a Greek sentence, which means we have to understand what it does. We have to have a clear sense of the grammatical role of the subject. And these two example sentences show the subject in red. So the king is the noun doing the ruling, and the dog is the noun doing the chasing. We can ignore most of the other words in the sentence for now because we're going to focus on the subject. So here are some example sentences for you to identify the subjects. So remember that the subject is the noun doing the verb. And it doesn't necessarily come first in a sentence, although in English it nearly always does. So you can pause the video here to give yourself enough time to identify the subject, and then we'll go over the answers. So here are the answers. We have Felicity doing the opening, Paris seeming, but in the third subject, which is I, it doesn't come first in the sentence. I am doing the wanting, okay? So it's a bit misleading. And then finally, the boy is doing the finding. So hopefully you're now comfortable with the role of the subject in a sentence. In Greek, the subject is expressed by using the nominative case. So this is the main role of the nominative case, and you'll often hear the term subject and nominative being used almost interchangeably. So now let's look at the object in a sentence, and we can identify the object in some English sentences. So the object is the noun having the verb done to it. It usually appears immediately after the verb in an English sentence, but it can appear anywhere in a Greek sentence. In these two example sentences, we can see that the painting is the thing having the looking done to it, so the object of the looking. In the second sentence, the girl is being chased, so she's the object of the verbal action, having the chasing done to her. Here are some more sentences to practice identifying the object. Remember that the object is the noun having the verb done to it. Again, you can ignore most of the other words in the sentence. You're just looking for the object. You might want to pause now in order to complete these. Okay, so the answers. In the first sentence, the object is the view because it's the thing being had. So it's the direct object of the verbal action, the having. The second sentence is slightly misleading because it doesn't follow normal English word order, although it does make sense. So the concert is the object because it's the thing being seen. So we is the subject and the concert is the object. Then the book and the treasure are a bit more straightforward since they come immediately after the verb. The book is having the object, is having the opening done to it, and likewise the treasure is having the finding done to it. In Greek, the object is nearly always expressed by the use of the accusative case. So the accusative case does have other uses, but this is the most important one. The term accusative, whenever you hear it, you should be thinking of the object first, because it's the most common use. Here are a few more sentences to practice identifying the subject and the object. And if you pause your video, then you'll see the answers appearing in red and green afterwards. I said at the beginning that Greek doesn't rely on word order to convey this information about the subject and the object of a sentence. So in order to identify the subject and object of Greek sentences, we need to look at the endings of the noun. Here we have some of the common nominative and accusative endings, and to illustrate how these are used, we have a Greek sentence, ton doulos dio ke hostrategos. We can see that the object comes first in this sentence, and that the subject comes last, which isn't a normal word order in English. This means that we have to use our knowledge of the subjects and the object to translate it accurately into English. We have to move the subject to the beginning of our English sentence because English relies on word order instead. We're now going to move on to the other cases in Greek. So there are three more important cases in Greek: the genitive, the dative, and the vocative. And we're not going to cover the vocative in this session, although it will feature in a future video. The genitive case tends to express possession and tends to be translated with of or with an apostrophe in English. The dative case is used for the indirect object of the verb and tends to be translated with to or for in English. Here we have an example of the use of the cases. We have a sentence, the old man gave the dog of the farmer to his wife, or the old man gave the farmer's dog to his wife. And these sentences are the same, but the possession expressed with of in the first sentence is expressed a bit more naturally with the apostrophe in the second sentence. We also have a reminder of the function of the cases and how they can be translated into English in the corner. So take a minute to try and work out the cases of the various nouns in the sentence. We can see from the colour coding that the old man is the subject because he's doing the verb. The dog is the object because it's having the verb done to it. Then the farmer, which is expressed with of and with the apostrophe, is in the genitive case, and the genitive can be translated with of because it expresses possession. Then the wife is in the dative case because it's to the wife, and the dative is translated into English with to or for. So here are some more practice sentences for you to see if you can identify the different cases. And you may wish to pause the video to spend some time doing this. Now let's go over the sentences and check our answers. Here are the nominatives in red, so the subjects of the verbs, the nouns doing the verbal action. Then we have the objects in green. The gift is being given, the story is being told, the water is being drunk, and the gift is being given again. Then we have the genitive nouns. Remember that this expresses possession, and in English, you'll find it translated with of or an apostrophe. So we have of Poseidon, since we can see the of there, and of the Lacedaemonians, and the kings, which could be expressed with of the king in English as well. Finally, we can identify our dative nouns, so to the soldier, to her sisters, and to the allies. And hopefully the word to will have been a big clue there, as to the dative is usually translated into English with to or for. So that's a lot to take in for now. And you may wish to practice with some more sentences and consolidate these grammatical terms before moving on. Let's very briefly move on to verbs. Just like we did with nouns, we also need to look at the ending of the verb, which tells us who is doing the verb as well as its tense and some other information as well. So it's really important to look at the ending of a verb. As you can see here, the verb I say, which is 2 words in English, is only 1 word in Greek, legor. So this means that we need to look at the verbal ending to tell us who is doing the verb. It gives us a lot more information about the verb that we need to know and pay attention to. The verb ending can also tell us more information about the tense of the verb and the mood of the verb and all sorts of other things, but this will be covered in other videos. For now, it's important to remember that Greek sentences don't have the same structure as English sentences, meaning that we have to have a good knowledge of how sentences fit together grammatically in English. Remember that English relies on word order to convey meaning, but Greek doesn't. For more resources on ancient Greek, please visit our website www.greeksummerschool.org.